Namo Sai Dayanam Sai Kripalam Sai Ananta Triguna Sarupam Sai Dayanam Sai Kripalam Sai Ananta Triguna Sarupam
Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai, bless thy child, Sai. Answer our prayers, strengthen our devotion. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Remove our sorrows, shower us with happiness. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Sai is life, Sai is prayer, Sai is kirtan, Sai is wealth, Sai is bliss, Sai is heaven. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Sai is contentment, Sai is peace, Sai is God incarnate, Sai is universe, Sai is mercy, Sai is wisdom. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Sai is righteousness, Sai is deliverance, Sai is absolute reality. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Sai is Christ, Sai is Nanak, Sai is Hindu, Sai is Muslim, Sai is truth, Sai is nectar. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Sai is Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, Sai is simple, loving, caring. Sai is mother, father, guru. Sai is Pran, Sai is soul. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai.
Chapters 43 and 44. Baba's passing away continued. Preparation, Samadhi Mandir, breaking of the brick, 72 hours Samadhi, Jog Sannyas, Baba's nectar-like words. Chapters 43 and 44 continue the story of Baba's passing away, and therefore they are taken together. Previous preparation. It is the general practice amongst the Hindus that when a man is about to die, some good religious scripture is read out to him with the object that his mind should be withdrawn from worldly things and fixed in matters spiritual, so that his future progress should be natural and easy. Everybody knows that when King Parikshiti was cursed by the son of a Brahmin rishi and was about to die after a week, the great sage Shuka expounded to him the famous Bhagavad Puran in that week. This practice is followed even now, and Gita, Bhagavad and other sacred books are read out to dying persons. Baba, being an incarnation of God, needed no such help, but just to set an example to the people, he followed this practice. When he knew that he was to pass away soon, he ordered one Mr. Vaze to read Rama Vijaya to him. Mr. Vaze read the book once in the week. Then Baba asked him to read the same again day and night, and he finished the second reading in 3 days. Thus 11 days passed. Then again he read for 3 days and was exhausted. Let him go and kept himself quiet. He abided on himself and was waiting for the last moment. 2 or 3 days previous, Baba had stopped his morning peregrinations and begging rounds and sat in the masjid. He was conscious to the last and was advising the devotees not to lose heart. He let nobody know the exact time of his departure. Kaka Sahib Dikshit and Shriman Bhuti were dining daily with him in the masjid. That day, the 15th of October, after Aarti, he asked them to go to their residence for dining. Still a few, which were Lakshmibai Shinde, Bhagoji Shinde, Bayaji, Lakshman Bala Shimpi and Nana Sahib Nimonkar, remained there. Shama was sitting down on the steps. After giving 9 rupees to Lakshmibai Shinde, Baba said that he did not feel well there in the masjid, and that he should be taken to the Dagari Vada of Bhuti, where he would be all right. While saying these last words, he leaned on Bayaji's body and breathed his last. Bhagoji noticed that his breathing had stopped, and he immediately told this to Nana Sahib Nimonkar, who was sitting below. Nana Sahib brought some water and poured it in Baba's mouth. It came out. Then he cried out loudly, "Oh Deva!" Baba seemed just to open his eyes and say "Ah" in a low tone. But it soon became evident that Baba had left his body for good. The news of Baba's passing away spread like a wildfire in the village of Shirdi, and all people, men, women and children, ran to the masjid and began to mourn this loss in various ways. Some cried out loudly, some wallowed in the streets, and some fell down senseless. Tears ran down from the eyes of all, and everyone was smitten with sorrow. Some people started remembering the words of Sai Baba. Somebody said that Sai Baba told his devotees that in time to come he would appear as a lad of 8 years. These are the words of a saint, and hence nobody should take doubt about them, because in the Krishna avatar, Chakrapani, that's Lord Vishnu, performed this very deed. Krishna appeared before Devaki in the prison as a lad of 8 years, who had bright complexion and who wielded weapons in his forearms. In that incarnation, Lord Krishna lightened the burden of the earth. This incarnation of Sai Baba was for the uplift of his devotees. Then where is the reason for doubt? The ways of the saints are really inscrutable. This contact of Sai Baba with his devotees is not only for one generation, but it is there for the last 72 generations. Generating such ties of love, it appears that Maharaj Sai Baba has gone for tour and the devotees had a firm belief that he will return soon. Then the question arose, how to dispose of Baba's body. Some Mohammedans said that the body should be interred in an open space and a tomb built over it. Even Kushal Chand and Amir Shakkar shared this opinion. But Ramachandra Patil, the village officer, said to the villagers with a firm and determined voice that it is not acceptable to us. Baba's body should be nowhere placed except in the Vada. Thus people were divided on this point, and discussion regarding this point went on for 36 hours. On Wednesday morning, Baba appeared to Lakshman Mama Joshi in his dream and drawing him by his hand said, "Up soon. Bapu Sahib thinks that I am dead and so he won't come. You do the worship and the Kakkad Aarti." Lakshman Mama was the village astrologer and was the maternal uncle of Shama. He was an orthodox Brahmin and daily first worshipped Baba in the morning and then all the village deities. He had full faith in Baba. After the vision, he came with all the puja materials and not minding the protests of the Maulvis, did the puja and the Kakkad Aarti with all due formalities and went away. Then at noon, Bapu Sahib Jog came with all others and went through the noon Aarti ceremony as usual. After paying due respect to Baba's words, the people decided to place his body in the Vada and started digging the central portion there. In the evening of Tuesday, the sub-inspector came from Rahata and others from other places turned up and they all agreed to the proposal. Next morning, Amir Bhai came from Bombay and Mamlatdar from Kopargaon. The people seemed divided in their opinion. Some insisted on interring his body in the open field. The Mamlatdar therefore took a general plebiscite and found that the proposal to use the Vada secured double the number of votes. He however wanted to refer the matter to the collector and Kaka Sahib Dikshit got himself ready to go to Ahmednagar. In the meanwhile, by Baba's inspiration there was a change in the opinion of the other people and all the people unanimously voted for the proposal. On Wednesday evening, Baba's body was taken in procession and brought to the Vada and was interred there with due formalities in the Garbha, that is the central portion reserved for Murlidhar. In fact, Baba became the Murlidhar and the Vada became a temple and a holy shrine, where so many devotees went and are going now to find rest and peace. All the obsequies of Baba were duly performed by Balasaheb Bhate and Upasani, a great devotee of Baba. It may be noted here that, as observed by Professor Narke, Baba's body did not get stiff though it was exposed for 36 hours, and that all the limbs were elastic and that his kafni could be taken out without being torn to pieces. Breaking of the brick. Some days before Baba's departure, there occurred an ominous sign foreboding the event. There was, in the masjid, an old brick on which Baba rested his hand and sat. At night time he leaned against it and had his asan. This went on for many years. One day during Baba's absence, a boy who was sweeping the floor took it up in his hand and unfortunately it slipped from thence, fell down, broke into 2 pieces. When Baba came to know about this, he bemoaned its loss, crying, "It's not the brick, but my fate that has been broken into pieces. It was my lifelong companion. With it I always meditated on the self. It was as dear to me as my life. It has left me today. Some may raise here a question. Should Baba express this sorrow for such an inanimate thing as a brick?" To this Hemad Pant replies that saints incarnate in this world with the express mission of saving the poor helpless people, and when they embody themselves and mix and act with the people, they act like them. That is, outwardly laugh, play and cry like other people, but inwardly they are wide awake to their duties and mission. 72 hours Samadhi. 32 years before this, in 1886 AD, Baba made an attempt to cross the borderline. On a Margashirsha Purnima, full moon day, Baba suffered from a severe attack of asthma. To get rid of it, Baba decided to take his prana high up and go into Samadhi. He said to Bhagat Mahalsapati, "My body for 3 days. If I return, it will be all right. If I do not, bury my body in that open land," pointing to it, "and fix 2 flags there as a mark." Saying this, Baba fell down at about 10 p.m. His breathing stopped, as well as his pulse. It seemed as if his prana had left the body. All the people, including the villagers, came there and wanted to hold an inquest and bury the body in the place pointed by Baba. But Mahalsapati prevented this. With Baba's body on his lap, he sat full 3 days guarding it. After 3 days passed, Baba showed signs of life at 3 a.m. His breathing commenced, the abdomen began to move, his eyes opened and stretching his limbs, Baba returned to consciousness again. From this and other accounts, let the readers consider whether Sai Baba was the 3.5 cubits body that he occupied for some years, and that he left thereafter, or he was the self inside. The body, composed of the 5 elements, is perishable and transient, but the self within is the thing, absolute reality which is immortal and intransient. The pure being, consciousness or Brahma, the ruler and controller of the senses and mind, is the thing Sai. This pervades all things in the universe, and there is no space without it. For fulfilling his mission, he assumed the body, and after it was fulfilled, he threw away the body, the finite aspect, and assumed his infinite aspect. Sai ever lives, as also the previous incarnation of God Datta, Shri Narasimha Saraswati of Gangapur. His passing away is only an outward aspect, but really he pervades all animate and inanimate things, and is their inner controller and ruler. This can be and is even now experienced by many who surrender themselves completely to him, and worship him with wholehearted devotion. Though it is not possible for us to see Baba's form now, still if we go to Shirdi, we shall find his beautiful lifelike portrait adorning the masjid. This has been drawn by Shamrao Jaikar, a famous artist and well-known devotee of Baba. To an imaginative and devout spectator, this portrait can give even today the satisfaction of taking Baba's darshan. Though Baba has no body now, he lives there and everywhere, and will affect the welfare of the devotees even now as he was doing before when he was embodied. Saints like Baba never die. Though they look like men, they are in reality God himself. Bapu Sahib Jog's Sannyas. Hemad Pant closes this chapter with the account of Jog's sannyas. Sakaram Hari alias Bapu Sahib Jog, was the uncle of the famous Varkari Vishnu Buva Jog of Pune. After his retirement from government service, where he was a supervisor in the PW department in 1909 AD, he came and lived in Shirdi with his wife. He had no issue. Both husband and wife loved Baba and spent all their time in worshipping and serving Baba. After Megha's death, Bapu Sahib daily did the Aarti ceremony in the masjid and Chavadi till Baba's Mahasamadhi. He was also entrusted with the work of reading and explaining Gnaneshwari and Ekanathi Bhagavat in Satheswara to the audience. After serving for many years, Jog asked Baba, "I have served you so long. My mind is not yet calm and composed. How is it that my contact with saints has not improved me? When will you bless me?" Hearing the Bhakta's prayer, Baba replied, "In due time, your bad actions, their fruit or result, will be destroyed. Your merits and demerits will be reduced to ashes, and I shall consider you blessed when you will renounce all attachments, conquer lust and palate, and getting rid of all impediments, serve God wholeheartedly and resort to the begging bowl, that is, accept sannyas." After some time, Baba's words came true. His wife predeceased him, and as he had no other attachment, he became free and accepted sannyas before his death and realized the goal of his life. Baba's nectar-like words. The kind and merciful Sai Baba said many a time the following sweet words in the masjid: "Who loves me most always sees me. The whole world is desolate to him without me. He tells no stories but mine. He ceaselessly meditates upon me and always chants my name. I feel indebted to him who surrenders himself completely to me and ever remembers me. I shall repay his debt by giving him salvation, that is self-realization. I am dependent on him who thinks and hungers after me and who does not eat anything without first offering it to me. He who thus comes to me becomes one with me, just as a river gets to the sea and becomes merged with it. So leaving out pride and egoism, and with no trace of them, you should surrender yourself to me, who am seated in your heart." Who is this me? Sai Baba expounded many a time who this me, or I, is. He said, "Need not go far or anywhere in search of me. Bearing your name and form, there exists in you, as well as in all beings, a sense of being or consciousness of existence. That is myself. Knowing this, you see me inside yourself as well as in all beings. If you practice this, you will realize all pervasiveness and thus attain oneness with me." Himmat Pant, therefore, makes a bow to the readers and requests them humbly and lovingly that they should love and respect all gods, saints and devotees. Has not Baba often said, "Who carps and cavils at others pierces me in the heart and injures me, but he that suffers and endures pleases me most"? Baba thus pervades all beings and besets them to all beings. Such nectar, pure auspicious ambrosia always flowed from Baba's lips. He therefore concludes, "Those who lovingly sing Baba's fame and those who hear the same with devotion both become one with Sai." Bow to Shri Sai, peace be to all.
Chapter 45, Preliminary. We have described in the last 3 chapters Baba's passing away. His physical or finite form has no doubt disappeared from our view, but the infinite or spiritual form, Spirit of Baba, ever lives. The Leelas which occurred during his lifetime have been dwelt upon at great length up till now. Ever since his passing away, fresh Leelas have taken place and are even now happening. This clearly shows that Baba is ever living and helping his devotees as before. The people who got the contact of Baba when he was living were indeed very fortunate, but if any of them did not get a dispassion for the things and enjoyments of the world, and had not their minds turned to the Lord, it was surely their ill luck. What was then desired and is now desired is the wholehearted devotion to Baba. All our senses, organs and minds should cooperate in worshipping and serving Baba. It is no use in engaging some organs in the worship and deflecting others. If a thing like worship or meditation is to be done, it ought to be done with all our mind and soul. The love that a chaste woman bears to her husband is more times compared to that which a disciple bears to the master, guru. Yet the former falls short of the latter, which is incomparable. No one, whether be father, mother, brother, or any other relation, comes to our aid in attaining the goal of life, self-realization. We have to chalk out and traverse the path of self-realization ourselves. We have to discriminate between the unreal and the real, renounce the things of and enjoyments of the world and the next, control our senses and minds, and aspire for liberation only. Instead of depending upon others, we should have full faith in ourselves. When we begin to practice discrimination, we come to know that the world is transient and unreal, and our passion for worldly things become less, and ultimately we get dispassion or non-attachment for them. When we know that the Brahma, which is no other than our Guru, is the sole reality, and as it transcends and besets the seeming universe, we begin to worship it. In all creatures, this is the unitive bhajan or worship. When we thus worship the Brahma or Guru wholeheartedly, we become one with him and attain self-realization. In short, always chanting the name of the Guru and meditating upon him enables us to see him in all beings and confers eternal bliss on us. The following story will illustrate this: Kakasab's doubt and Anandrao's vision. It is well said that Sai Baba had enjoined Kakasab Dixit to read daily 2 works of Shri Eknath, number 1 Bhagavad and number 2 Bharata Ramayana. Kakasab read these daily while Baba was living, and he followed the practice even after Baba's passing away. Once in Kaka Mahajani's house in Chowpatty, Mumbai, Kakasab was reading Eknathi Bhagavad in the morning. Madhavrao Deshpande alias Shama and Kaka Mahajani were then present and listened attentively to the portion read, viz. The 2nd chapter, 11th skanda of the book. Therein the 9 Nathas or Siddhis of the Rishabha family, viz. Kavi, Hari, Antariksha, Prabhupada, Pipalayan, Avirhotra, Drumil, Chamas, Karabhajan, expounded the principles of the Bhagavad Dharma to King Janak. The latter asked all the 9 Nathas most important questions, and each of them answered them satisfactorily. The first, i.e. Kavi, explained, what is Bhagavad Dharma? Hari, the characteristics of a Bhakta devotee. Antariksha, what is Maya? Prabhuddha, how to cross Maya. Pipalayan, what is Parabrahma? Avihotra, what is Karma? Drumil, the incarnations of God and their deeds. Chamas, how a non-devotee fares after death. Garabhajan, the different modes of worship of God in different ages. The substance of all the exposition was that in this Kali age, the only means of liberation was the remembrance of Hari, Lord's or Guru's feet. After the reading was over, Kakasab said in the despondent tone of Madhavrao and others, how wonderful is the discourse of 9 Nathas on bhakti or devotion, but at the same time, how difficult it is. Put it into practice. The Nathas were perfect, but is it possible for fools like us to attain the devotion as delineated by them? We won't get it, even after several births. Then how are we to get salvation? It seems that there is no hope for us. Madhavrao did not like this pessimistic attitude of Kakasab. He said, it is a pity that one who by his good luck got such a jewel Guru as Baba should cry out so despairingly. If he was unwavering faith in Baba, why should he feel restless? The bhakti of the Nathas may be strong and powerful, but is not ours, loving and affectionate. And has not Baba told us authoritatively that remembering and chanting Hari's and Guru's name confers salvation? Then where is the cause for fear and anxiety? Kakasab was not satisfied with Madhavrao's explanation. He continued to be anxious and restless the whole day, thinking and brooding over how to get the powerful bhakti of the Nathas. Next morning, the following miracle took place. One gentleman named Anandrao Pakade came there in search of Madhavrao. The reading of the Bhagavad was then going on. Mr. Pakade sat near Madhavrao and was whispering something to him. He was mentioning in low tone his dream vision. As there was some interruption in the reading by his whispering, Kakasab stopped the reading and said, Madhavrao, what was the matter? The latter said, Yesterday you expressed your doubt. Now here is the explanation of it. Here Mr. Pakade's vision, which gave him explaining the characteristic of saving devotion and showing that the devotion in the form of bow to or worship of Guru's feet is sufficient. All were anxious to hear the vision, especially Kakasab. At their suggestion, Mr. Bakare began to relate this vision as follows. I was standing in a deep sea in waist-deep water. There I saw Sai Baba. All of a sudden, he was sitting on a beautiful throne studded with diamonds, with his feet in the water. I was most pleased and satisfied with the form of Baba. The vision was so realistic that I never thought that it was a dream. Curiously enough, Madhavrao also standing there. He said to me feelingly, Anandrao, fall at Baba's feet. I rejoined, I also wish to do so, but his feet are in the water. How can I place my head on them? I am helpless. Hearing this, he said to Baba, O Deva, take out your feet, which are under water. Then Baba immediately took out his feet. I caught them without delay and bowed to them. On seeing this, Baba blessed me, saying, Go now, you will attain your welfare. There is no cause for fear and anxiety. He also added, Give a silk-bordered dhota to my Shama, you will profit thereby. In compliance with Baba's order, Mr. Pakade brought the dhota and requested Kakasab to hand it over to Madhavrao, but the latter refused to accept it, saying that unless Baba gave a hint or suggestion for acceptance, he would not accept it. Then after some discussion, Kakasab decided to cast lots. It was the invariable practice of Kakasab to cast lots in all dubious matters and to abide by the decision as shown by the picked up chit or lot. In this particular case, 2 chits on which was written to accept and on the other to reject were placed at the feet of Baba's picture, and an infant was to pick one of them. The accept chit was picked up and the dhota was handed over to and accepted by Madhavrao. In this way, both Anandrao and Madhavrao were satisfied and Kakasab's difficulty was solved. This story exhorts us to give respect to the words of other saints, but at the same time asks us to have full faith in our mother, i.e. the Guru, and abide by his instructions, for he knows our welfare better than any other person. Carve out on your heart the following words of Baba. There are innumerable saints in this world, but our Father, Guru, is the Father, the real Guru. Others might say many good things, but we should never forget our Guru's word. In short, love your Guru wholeheartedly, surrender to him completely, and prostrate yourselves before him reverentially, and then you will see that this is no sea of the mundane existence before you to cross, as there is no darkness for the sun. Wooden plank, Baba's bedstead, and not boggarts. In his earlier days, Baba slept on a wooden plank, 4 arms in length and only a span in breadth, and one of these earthen lamps burning at all 4 corners. Later on, he broke the plank into pieces and threw it away, as chapter 10. Once Baba was describing the greatness of importance of this plank to Kakasab. On hearing this, the latter said to Baba, If you still love the wooden plank, I will again suspend it or hang one up in the masjid for you to sleep at ease. Baba replied, I won't like to sleep up, leaving Malsapati down on the ground. Then Kakasab said, I will provide another plank for Malsapati too. Baba said, How can he sleep on the plank? It is not easy to sleep on a plank. He who has many good qualities in him only can sleep on the plank. He who can sleep with his eyes wide open can effect that. When I go to sleep, I often ask Malsapati to sit by my side, place his hand on my heart, and watch the chanting of the Lord's name there. And if he finds me sleepy, wake me up. He can't even do this. He himself gets drowsy and begins to nod his head. When I feel his hand heavy as a stone on my heart and cry out, "Oh, Bhagat," he opens his eyes. How can he, who can't sit and sleep well on the ground, and whose asana posture is not steady, and who is slave to sleep, can sleep high on a plank? On many other occasions, Baba said, out of love for his devotees, what, whether good or bad, is ours, is with us, and what is another's is with him. Bow to Shri Sai, peace to all.
Can I start?
Yes, Arvind Bhai?
Yes. Chapter 46, Baba's Gaya trip, story of goats. This chapter describes Shama's trip to Kashi, Prayag, and Gaya, and how Baba, in the form of his portrait, was there ahead of him. It also describes Baba's reminiscences of the past birth of two goats. Preliminary. Blessed, O Sai, are your feet. Blessed is your remembrance, and blessed is your darshana, which frees us from the bond of karma. Though your form is invisible to us now, still, if the devotees believe in you, they get living experiences from you. By an invisible and subtle thread, you draw your devotees from far and near to your feet and embrace them like a kind and loving mother. The devotees do not know where you are, but you so skillfully pull the wires that they ultimately realize that you are at their back to help and support them. The intelligent, wise, and learned folk fall into the pit of samsara on account of their egoism, but you save by your power the poor, simple, and devout persons. Inwardly and invisibly, you play all the game, but show that you are not concerned with it. You do things and pose yourself as a non-doer. Nobody ever knows your life. The best course, therefore, for us is to surrender our body, speech, and mind to your feet, and always chant your name for destroying our sins. You fulfill the wishes of the devotees to those who are without any desire. You give bliss supreme. Chanting your sweet name is the easiest sadhan for devotees. By this sadhan, means our sins, rajas and tamas qualities will vanish. The sattva qualities and righteousness will gain predominance, and along with this, discrimination, dispassion, and knowledge will follow. Then we shall abide in ourself and our Guru, who are one and the same. This is what is called complete surrender to the Guru. The only sure sign of this is that our mind gets calm and peaceful. The greatness of this surrender, devotion, and knowledge is unique. For peace, non-attachment, fame, and salvation, etc., come in its train. If Baba accepts a devotee, he follows him and stands by him day and night. at his home or abroad. Let the devotee go anywhere he likes. Baba is there ahead of him in some form in an inconceivable manner. The following story illustrates this. Gaya trip. Sometime after Kaka Saheb Dixit was introduced to Sai Baba, he decided to perform the thread Upanayam ceremony of his eldest son Babu at Nagpur. At about the same time, Nana Saheb Chandorkar decided to perform the marriage ceremony of his eldest son at Gwalior. Both Dikshit and Chandorkar came to Shirdi and lovingly invited Baba for these functions. Baba asked them to take Shama as his representative. When he was pressed to come in person, Baba told them to take Shama with them, and that after going to Banaras and Prayag, he would be ahead of Shama. Now mark these words, for they show Baba's all-pervasiveness. Taking the permission of Baba, Shama decided to go to Nagpur and Gwalior for these functions and ceremonies, and thence to Kashi, Prayag, and Gaya. Appa Kote made up his mind to accompany him. They both went first to Nagpur for the thread ceremony. Kaka Saheb Dikshit gave Shama rupees 200 for his expenses. Then they went to Gwalior for the marriage ceremony. There, Nana Saheb Chandorkar gave Shama rupees 100, and his Vyahi, the relation, Mr. Jather, gave him also rupees 100. Then Shama went to Kashi and then to Ayodhya, where he was well received in Jathar's beautiful temple of Lakshmi Narayan at Kashi, Varanasi or Banaras, and in the Rama Mandir at Ayodhya by Jathar's manager. They, meaning Shama and Kote, stayed for 21 days in Ayodhya and 2 months in Kashi, which is now also called Banaras. Then they left for Gaya. In the train, they felt a little uneasy on hearing that plague was prevailing in Gaya. At night, they alighted at Gaya station and stayed in the Dharmashala. In the morning, the Gayawala, the priest who arranges and provides for the lodging and boarding of the pilgrims, came there and aid. Pilgrims have already started. You better make haste. Shama casually asked him whether there was a plague in Gaya. Kot said, the Gayawala, come without any fear or anxiety and see yourself. Then they went with him and stayed in his house, which was a big and commodious vada. Shama was pleased with the accommodation provided for him, but what pleased him most was the beautiful big portrait of Baba fixed in the central and front portion of the building. Seeing this portrait, Shama was overwhelmed with emotion. He remembered Baba's words. After doing Kashi and Prayag, he would be ahead of Shama and burst into tears. His hairs stood on end, his throat was choked, and he began to sob. The Gayawala thought that he was afraid of plague prevailing there and therefore was crying. But Shama inquired of him whence he got Baba's portrait there. He replied that he had 200 or 300 agents working at Manmad and Punatambe for looking to the convenience of pilgrims to Gaya, and from them he heard about Baba's fame. Then about 12 years ago, he went to Shirdi and took Baba's darshan. There he wanted Baba's portrait hung in Shama's house, and with Baba's permission, Shama gave it to him. This was the same portrait Shama then remembered this formal incident. The Gayawala's joy knew no bounds when he learned that the same Shama who obliged him before was his guest then. Then they both exchanged love and service and were most delighted and happy. The Gayawala gave him a right royal welcome. He was a very rich man. He sat in a palanquin and made Shama ride an elephant and attended to all his comforts and conveniences. The moral of the story is this, that Baba's words came out true to the letter and unbounded was his love towards the devotees. But leave this aside. He also loved all creatures equally, for he felt that he was one with them. The following story will illustrate this. Two goats. Baba was once returning from Lendi when he saw a flock of goats. Two of them attracted his attention. He went to them, caressed and fondled them, and bought them for rupees 32. The devotees were surprised at this conduct of Baba. They thought that Baba was duped in this bargain, as the goats would fetch rupees 2 each, at the most rupees 3 or 4 each, i.e. rupees 8 for both. They began to take Baba to task for this, but Baba kept calm and cool. Shama and Tatya Kote asked Baba for an explanation. He said he should not store money as he had no home and any family to look after. He asked them to purchase at his cost 4 shares of dal, meaning lentil, and feed the goats. After this was done, Baba returned the goats to the owner of the flock and gave out of the following reminiscences and story of the goats. Shama and Tatya, you think that I have been deceived in this bargain? No. Listen to their story. In their former birth, they were human beings and had the good fortune to be my companions and sit by my side. They were uterine brothers, loving each other at first, but later on they became enemies. The elder brother was an idle fellow, while the younger one was an active chap and earned a lot of money. The former became greedy and jealous and wanted to kill his brother and take away his money. They forgot their fraternal relation and began to quarrel with each other. The elder brother resorted to many devices to kill his younger brother, but all of these attempts failed. Thus they became deadly enemies, and finally, on one occasion, the elder gave a deadly blow with a big stick on the latter's head, while the latter struck the former with an axe, with the result that both fell dead on the spot. As the result of their actions, they were both born as goats. As they passed by me, I at once recognized them. I remembered their past history. Taking pity on them, I wanted to feed them and give them rest and comfort, and for this reason I spent all the money for which you reproved me. As you did not like my bargain, I sent them back to their shepherd. Such was Sai's love for the goats. Bow to Shri Sai, peace be to all.
Chapter 47 Baba's Reminiscence. Story of Veer Bhadrappa and Chena Basapya, Snake and Frog. The last chapter described Baba's reminiscences about 2 goats. This chapter describes more such reminiscences and relates the story of Veer Bhadrappa and Chena Basappa. Preliminary. Blessed is the face of Sai. If we cast a glance at him for a moment, he destroys the sorrow of many past births and confers great bliss on us. And if he looks at us with grace, our bondage of karma is immediately snapped away, and we are led to happiness. The river Ganges washes away the dirt and sins of all people who go to her for a bath. But she intentionally longs for the saints to come to her and blesses her with the touch of their feet and removes all filth, sins accumulated in her. She knows for certain that this can only be removed by the holy feet of the saints. Sai is the crest jewel of the saint, and now hear from him the following purifying stories. The Snake and the Frog. Sai Baba said, "One morning, after taking my breakfast, I strolled along till I came to a small river bank. As I was tired, I rested there, washed my hands and feet, and had a bath and felt refreshed. There was a footpath and a cart track sheltered by shady trees. The breeze was also blowing gently. As I was preparing to smoke chilim pipe, I heard the croaking of a frog. I was striking the flint and the light the fire, when the traveller turned up, sat by my side, bowed down to me, and politely invited me to his house for meals and rest. He lit up the pipe and handed it over to me. The croaking was heard again, and he wanted to know what it was. I told him that a frog was in trouble and was tasting the bitter fruit of his karma. We have to reap now the fruit of what he sows in his past life, and there is no use crying about it now. Then he smoked and handed over the pipe to me and said that he would go there in person and see for himself. I told him that the frog was caught by a big snake and was crying. Both were very wicked in their past lives and were now reaping the fruits of their actions in present bodies. He went and found the huge black serpent was found holding a big frog in his mouth. He returned to me and said that in about 10 or 12 minutes the frog would be eaten up by a snake. I said, "No, this can't be. I am its father, protector, and I am here now. How shall I allow the snake to eat it up? I am here for nothing. Just see how I release it." After smoking again, we walked up to the place. He was afraid and asked me not to proceed further as the snake might attack us. Not minding him, I went ahead and addressed the creatures thus: "O Veerbhadrapa, has not your enemy Basapa yet repented, though he has born as a frog, and you too, born as a serpent, still hold bitter enmity against him? Be ashamed of yourself, give up your hatred now, and rest in peace." On hearing these words, the snake left the frog quickly and dived into the river and disappeared. The frog also jumped away and hid itself in the bush. The traveller was much surprised. He said that he could not understand how the snake dropped the frog and disappeared on hearing the words. Who was Veerbhadrapa and who was Basapa? And what was the cause of their enmity? I returned with him to the foot of the tree, and after sharing again a few puffs of smoke with him, I explained the whole mystery to him as follows. There was an ancient holy place sanctified by a temple of Mahadev about 4 or 5 miles from my place. The temple was old, dilapidated. The residents of the place collected funds for its repair. After a large amount was collected, arrangements of the worship was made and planned, with estimates for repairs were made. A rich local man was appointed as the treasurer, and the whole work was entrusted to him. He was to keep regular accounts and be honest with his dealings. He was the first-class miser and spent very little for the repairs, which was consequently made very little progress. He spent all the funds, swallowed some amount himself, and spent nothing from his pocket. He had a sweet tongue and was very clever in offering plausible explanation regarding the poor and tardy progress of the work. The people again went to him and said that unless he lent his helping hand and tried the best, the work would be not complete. They requested him to work out a scheme and again collected subscription and sent the amount to him. He received it, but sat as quiet as before, making any progress. After some days, God Mahadev appeared in his wife's dream and said to her, "You get up, build the dome of the temple. I will give you 100-fold of what you spend." She told his vision to her husband. He was afraid that it would involve him in expenses and therefore laughed it off and saying, "There is a mere dream, a thing not to be relied and act upon. Else why did not God appear to him in the dream and tell him about it? Was he far off from her? This looks like the bad dream. Having its object in creations of ill feeling between husband and wife, she had to remain quiet. God does not like big subscriptions and donations collected against the wishes of the donors, but he likes ever trifling amounts given with love, devotion, and gratitude. Some days after, God again appeared in her dream and said, "Do not bother yourself about your husband and the collection with him. Don't press him to spend any money for the temple. What I want is power and devotion. So give, if you like, anything of your own." She consulted her husband about the vision and decided to give God her ornaments given by her father. The miser felt disconcerted and decided to cheat even God in this item. He undervalued the ornaments at 1,000 rupees and brought them himself, and in lieu of the amount gave a barren field to God as endowment of security. The wife agreed to this. The field or land was not his own. It belonged to one poor woman named Dubaki, who mortgaged it to him for 200 rupees. She was not able to redeem it for long. So the cunning miser cheated all his wife Dubaki and even God. The land was sterile, uncultivated, and worth nothing, and yielded nothing even in the best seasons. Thus ended this transaction, and the land was given in the possession of the poor priest, who was pleased with the endowment. Some time later, strange things happened. There was a terrific storm and heavy downpour. Lightning struck the house of the miser when he and his wife both died. Dubaki also breathed her last. In the last life, the rich miser was born at Mathura in Brahmin family and named Veerbhadrapa. His devout wife was born as the daughter of the priest of the temple and was named Gauri. The woman Dubaki, the mortgager, was born as a male in the family of Gaurav, attendant of the temple, and was named Chen Basapa. The priest was a friend of mine. He often came to me, chatted, and smoked with me. His daughter Gauri was also devoted to me. She was growing fast, and the father was seeking a good husband for her. I told him not to worry about this, as the bridegroom himself would come seeking for her. Then there came a poor boy named Veerbhadrapa, wandering, begging his bread to the priest's house. With my consent, Gauri was given marriage to him. He was so devoted to me initially as I recommended his marriage with Gauri, but later became a miser. Even in this new life, he was hankering after money and asked me to help him to get it, as he was lending a married man's life. Strange things happened. There was a sudden rise in prices. By Gauri's good luck, there was a great demand for a land, and the land was sold for 1 lakh rupees, 100 times the worth of her ornaments. Half the amount was paid in cash, and the remaining was paid in 25 installments of 2,000 rupees each. All agreed to this transaction, but they began to quarrel over the money. They came to me for consultation. I told them the property belonged to God and was vested in the priest, and that Gauri was the sole heiress and proprietress, and no amount would be spent without her consent, and her husband had no right whatsoever to the amount. On hearing my opinion, Veerbhadrapa was wroth with me and said I wanted to establish Gauri's claim and embezzle her property. On hearing these words, I remembered God and kept quiet. Veerbhadrapa scolded his wife Gauri, and she came to me at noon and requested me not to mind the words of others and not to discard her. She was my daughter. As she thus sought my protection, I gave her the pledge that I would cross 7 seas to help her. Then that night, Gauri had a vision. Mahadev appeared in her dream and said, "The whole money is yours. Do not give anything to anybody. Spend some amount for the temple purposes in consultation with Chen Basappa, and if you want to use it for some other purpose, consult Baba in the masjid myself. Gauri told me the vision and I gave the proper advice in the matter. I told her to take the principal or capital amount to herself, give half the amount of interest to Chen Basappa, and that Virbhadrappa had nothing to do in this matter. While I was thus talking, both Virbhadrappa and Chenabaspa came there quarreling. I tried my best to pacify them and told them God's vision to Gauri. Virbhadrappa got wild and angry and threatened to kill Chen Basappa, cutting him into pieces. The latter was timid. He caught my feet and sought my refuge. I pledged myself to save him the wrath of foe. Then after some time Virbhadrappa died and was born as a snake, and Chen Basappa died and was born as a frog. On hearing the croaking Chen Basappa and remembering my pledge, I came here to save them and kept my word. God runs to his devotees for help in times of danger. He saved Chen Basappa the frog by sending me here. All this is God's leela or sport. The moral of the story is that one has to reap what one sows, and there is no escape unless one suffers and squares up one's old debt and dealing with others, and that greed for money drags the greedy man to the lowest level and ultimately brings destructions for him and others. Bow to Shri Sai. Peace to be all.
Chapter 48, Warding Off Devotees' Calamities, Stories of 1. Shivade and 2. Saptanekar. At the commencement of this chapter, someone asked Hemat Pant whether Sai Baba was a guru or Sadguru. In order to answer the question, Hemat Pant describes the signs of a Sadguru as follows. Signs of a Sadguru. He who teaches us Veda and Vedanta, or the 6 Shastras, the systems, he who controls the breath or brands his body with mudras, metallic marks of Vishnu's weapons, or gives pleasing discourses regarding Brahma, he who gives mantras, sacred syllables, to the disciples and orders them to chant the same a certain number of times, but does not assure them any result in a definite time, he who by his spacious worldly knowledge explains beautifully the ultimate principle, but has himself got no experience of self-realization, is not a Sadguru, but he who by his discourse creates in us a distaste for the enjoyments of this world and the next, and gives us a taste of self-realization, who is well versed in both the theoretical and practical knowledge of self-realization, deserves to be called a Sadguru. How can he, who is himself devoid of self-realization, give it to the disciples? A Sadguru does not even, in his dream, expect any service or profit from his disciples. On the contrary, he wishes to serve them. He does not think that he is great and the disciple is small. Not only does he love him as his son, but also regards him as an equal to himself or as Brahma. The main characteristic of a Sadguru is that he is the abode of peace. He is never restless or ruffled. He has no pride of his learning. The poor and the rich, the small and the great are the same to him. Hemat Pant thinks that on account of the store on accumulation of merits in his past births, he had the good fortune of meeting and being blessed by such a Sadguru as Sai Baba. Even in full youth, he hoarded nothing, except perhaps chilim. He had no family, no friend, no home, nor any support. Since he was 18, his control of mind was perfect and extraordinary. He lived then fearless in a secluded place and always abided in his self. Seeing the pure attachment of his devotees, he always acted in their interests, and hence he was in a way dependent on them. What experiences he gave to his devotees while he was living in flesh are even today, after his Mahasamadhi, obtained now by those who attach themselves to him. What the devotees have to do is this: They have to trim their heart lamp of faith and devotion and burn in it wicks of love. And when this is done, the flame of knowledge, self-realization, will be lit up and shine brighter. Mere knowledge without love is dry. Nobody wants such knowledge. Without love, there is no contentment. So we should have unbroken and unbounded love. How can we praise love? Everything is insignificant before it. Without love, our reading, hearing, and study are of no avail. In the wake of love, follow devotion, dispassion, peace, and liberation with all their treasures. We do not get love for anything else. We do not get love for anything else we feel earnestly about it. So, where there is real yearning and feeling, God manifests Himself. It includes love and is the means of liberation. Now, let us revert to the main story of this chapter. Let a man go to a true saint with a pure mind and hold his feet. Ultimately, he is sure to be saved. This is illustrated by the following stories. Mr. Shivade. Mr. Sapnanikar of Akalkot, Sholapur district, was studying for law. A co-student of Mr. Shivade met him. Other fellow students also gathered together and compared notes of their study. It was found by the questions and answers amongst themselves that Mr. Shivade was the least prepared of all for the examination, and therefore all the students derided him. But he said that though he was not prepared, he was sure to pass the examination, as his Sai Baba was there to get him through it successfully. Mr. Satnikar was surprised at this remark. He took Mr. Shivade aside and asked him, "Who is this Sai Baba?" Who is this Sai Baba, who he extolled so high? He replied, "There lives in a masjid in Shirdi, Ahmednagar district, a fakir. He is a great Satpurush. There may be other saints, but this is unique. Unless there is a great store of merit on one's account, one can't see him. I fully believe in him, and what he says will never be untrue. He has assured me that I will pass definitely next year, and I am confident that I will get through the final examination also with his grace." Mr. Sapnikar laughed at his friend's confidence and jeered at him and Baba. Sapnikar. Mr. Sapnikar passed his examination, settled at Akalkot, and practiced as a pleader there. 10 years after that, i.e. in 1913, he lost his only son on account of a throat disease. That broke his heart. He sought relief by making a pilgrimage to Pandarapur, Gangapur, and other holy places. He got no peace of mind. Then he read Vedanta, which also did not help him. In the meanwhile, he remembered Mr. Shivade's remarks and his faith in Baba, and he thought that he too should go to Shirdi and see Baba. He went to Shirdi with his younger brother Pandit Rao and was much pleased to see Baba from a distance. When he went near and prostrated himself and placed a coconut before Baba with pure feeling of devotion, the latter at once cried out, "Get away!" Sapnikar hung down his head, moved back and sat aside. He wanted to consult somebody who would advise him how to proceed. Somebody mentioned Bala Shimpi's name. Sapnikar saw him and sought his help. They brought Baba's photo and came with them to the masjid. Bala Shimpi took a photo in his hand, gave it to Baba, asked him whose photo it was. Baba said that the photo was the Yara, the lover of him, pointing to Sapnikar. Saying this, Baba laughed and all others joined. Bala asked Baba the significance of the laugh and beckoned Sapnikar to come forward and take darshan. When Sapnikar began to prostrate himself, Baba again cried, "Get out!" Sapnikar did not know what to do. Then they both joined their hands and sat before Baba praying. Baba finally ordered Sapnikar to clear out immediately. Both were sad and dejected. As Baba's order had to be obeyed, Sapnikar left Shirdi with a heavy heart, praying that he should be allowed to take darshan next time. Mrs. Sapnikar. 1 year elapsed. Still, his mind was not at peace. He went to Gangapur, where he felt more restless. Then he went to Madigaon for rest and finally decided to go to Kashi. 2 days before starting, his wife got a vision. In her dream, she was going with a pitcher to Lak the Shah's well. Lakad Shah's well. There, a fakir with a piece of cloth round his head, who was sitting in the foot of the nim tree, came close to her and said, "My dear lassie, why get exhausted for nothing? I will get your pitcher filled with pure water." She was afraid of the fakir and hastened back with the empty pitcher. The fakir followed her. At that time, she awoke and opened her eyes. She told that vision to her husband. They thought that it was a suspicious sign and they both left for Shirdi. When they reached the masjid, Baba was absent. He had gone to Lendi. They waited till his return. When he returned, she was surprised to see that the fakir whom she had seen in her vision resembled exactly like Baba. She reverently prostrated herself before Baba and sat looking at him. Seeing her humility, Baba was much pleased and began to tell a story in his peculiar, characteristic fashion to a third party. He said, "My arms, abdomen, and waist are paining for a long time. I took many medicines. The pain did not abate. I got sick of the medicines and they gave me no relief. But I am surprised to see now that all the pains have disappeared at once. Though no name was mentioned, it was the story of Mrs. Sapnikar herself. Her pains, as described by Baba, left her soon and she was happy. Then Mr. Sapnikar went ahead to take darshan. He again was welcomed with the former, 'Get out.' This time he was more penitent and persevering. He said that Baba's displeasure was due to his past deeds and resolved to make amends for the same. He determined to see Baba alone and ask his pardon for his past actions. This he did. He placed his head on Baba's feet and Baba placed his hand on it, and Sapnikar sat stroking Baba's leg. Then a shepherdess came and sat massaging Baba's waist. Baba, in his characteristic way, began to tell the story of Abania. He related the various vicissitudes of all his life, including the death of his only son. Sapnikar was surprised to see that the story which Baba related was his own, and he wondered how Baba knew every detail of it. He came to know that he was omniscient, and he knew the hearts of all. When that thought crossed his mind, Baba, still addressing the shepherdess and pointing to Sapnikar, said, "This fellow blames me and charges me with killing his son. Do I kill people's children? Why does this fellow come to the masjid and cry? Now I will do this. I will again bring that very child back to his wife's womb." With these words, he placed his blessing hand on his head and comforted him, saying, "These feet are old and holy. You are carefree now. Place entire faith in me and you will soon get your object." Sapnikar was much moved with emotion. He bathed Baba's feet with his tears and then returned to his residence. Then he made preparations of worship and Naivedya and came with his wife to the masjid. He offered all that to Baba daily and accepted prasad from him. There was a crowd in the masjid and Sapnikar went there and saluted Baba again and again. Seeing heads clashing against heads, Baba said to Sapnikar, "Oh, why do you prostrate yourself now and then? The one namaskar offered with love and humility is enough." Then Sapnikar witnessed that night the Chavadi procession described before. In that procession, Baba looked like a veritable Pandurang, Vittal. At parting next day, Sapnikar thought that he should first pay 1 rupee as dakshina, and if Baba asked again, instead of saying no, he should pay 1 more, reserving with him sufficient amount as expenses for the journey. When he went to the masjid and offered 1 rupee, Baba asked for another as per his intention, and when it was paid, Baba blessed him, saying, "Take the coconut, Put it in your wife's oti, upper fold of her sari, and go away at ease, without the least anxiety. He did so, and within a year a son was born to him, and with an infant of 8 months the pair came to Shirdi, placed it at Baba's feet, and prayed thus: O Sai Nath, we do not know how to redeem your obligations, therefore we prostrate ourselves before you. Bless us, poor, helpless fellows. Henceforth, let your holy feet be our only sole refuge. Many thoughts and ideas trouble us in walking. Many thoughts and ideas trouble us in waking and in dreams. So turn away our minds from them to your bhajan and bless us. The son was named Murlidhar. 2 others, Baskar and Dinkar, were born afterwards. The Sapnikar pair thus realized that Baba's words were never untrue and unfulfilled, but turned out literally true. Bow to Shri Sai, peace be to all.
Chapter 49 Stories of Hari Kanoba, Somdev Swami, Nana Sahib Chandorkar. Preliminary. The Vedas and the Puranas cannot sufficiently praise, describe Brahma or Sadguru. Then how can we, who are ignorant, describe our Sadguru Sri Sai Baba? We think that it is better for us to keep quiet in this matter. In reality, the observance of the vow of silence is the best way of praising the Sadguru. But the good qualities of Sai Baba make us forget our vow of silence and inspire us to open our mouth. Good dishes taste flat if there be no company of friends and relations to partake of the dishes with us. But when they join us, the dishes acquire additional flavor. The same is the case with the Sai Leela Leelamrit, the nectar in the form of Sai's Leelas. This nectar we cannot partake alone. Friends and brothers have to join us. The more, the better. It is Sai Baba himself that inspires these stories and gets them written as he desires. Our duty is to surrender completely to him and meditate on him. Practicing penance is better than pilgrimage, vow, sacrifice, and charity. Worshipping Hari, Lord, is better than penance, and meditation on the Sadguru is best of all. We have, therefore, to chant Sai's name by mouth, think over his sayings in our mind, meditate on his form, feel real love for him in our heart, and do all our actions for his sake. There is no better means than this for snapping the bondage of samsara. If we can do our duty on our part, as stated above, Sai is bound to help and liberate us. Now we revert to the stories of this chapter. Hari Kanoba. A gentleman of Bombay named Hari Kanoba heard from his friends and relations many Leelas of Baba. He didn't believe in them as he was a doubting Thomas. He wanted to test Baba himself. So he came to Shirdi with some Bombay friends. He wore a lace-bordered turban on his head and a new pair of sandals on his feet. Seeing Baba from a distance, he thought of going to him and prostrating himself before him. He didn't know what to do with his new sandals. Still going to some corner outside in the open courtyard, he placed them there and went in the masjid and took Baba's darshan. He made a reverential bow to Baba, took Udi and prasad from Baba and returned. When he reached the corner, he found that his sandals had disappeared. He searched for them in vain and returned to his lodging very much dejected. He bathed, offered worship and naivedya, and sat for meals. But all the while he was thinking about nothing but his sandals. After finishing his meals, he came out to wash his hands, and when he saw a Maratha boy coming towards him, he had in his hand a stick, on the top of which was suspended a pair of new sandals. He said to the men who came out to wash their hands that Baba sent him with this stick in the hand and asked him to go on the streets crying Hari ka beta, Jari ka peta, and told him that if anybody claims these sandals, First assure yourself that his name is Hari, and that he is the son of Ka, i.e. Kanoba, and that he wears a lace-bordered turban, and then give them to him. Hearing this, Hari Kanoba was pleasantly surprised. He went ahead to the boy and claimed the sandals as his own. He said to the boy that his name was Hari, and that he is the son of Kanoba, and showed him his lace-bordered turban. The boy was satisfied and returned the sandals to him. Hari Kanoba wondered in his mind, saying that his lace-bordered turban was visible to all, and Baba might have seen it. But how could he know his name is Hari, and that he is the son of Kanoba, as this was his first trip to Shirdi? He came there with the sole object of testing Baba, and with no other motive. He came to know by this incident that Baba was a great Satpurush. He got what he wanted and returned home well pleased. Somdev Swami. Now hear the story of another man who came to try Baba. Bhaiji, brother of Kaka Sahib Dikshit, was staying in Nagpur, where he had gone to the Himalayas in 1906 AD. He made an acquaintance with one Somdev Swami of Hardwar at Uttarkashi, down the Gangotri valley. Both took down each other's name in their diaries. 5 years afterwards, Somdev Swami came to Nagpur and was Bhaiji's guest. There he was pleased to hear the Leelas of Baba, and a strong desire arose in his mind to go to Shirdi and see him. He got a letter of introduction from Bhaiji and left for Shirdi. After passing Manmad and Kopargaon, he took a tanga and drove to Shirdi. As he came near Shirdi, he saw two high flags floating over the masjid in Shirdi. Generally, we find different ways of behavior, different modes of living, and different outward paraphernalia with different saints. But these outward signs should never be our standards to judge the worth of the saints. But with Somdev Swami, it was different. As soon as he saw the flags flying, he thought, should a saint take a liking for the flags? Does this donate sainthood? It implies that saints hankering after fame. Thinking thus, he wished to cancel his Shirdi trip and said to his fellow travelers that he would go back. They said to him, "Why did you come so long? If your mind gets restless by the sight of the flags, how much more agitated would you be on seeing in Shirdi the Rath car, the palanquin, the horse, and all other paraphernalia?" The Swami got more confounded and said, "A few such sadhus with horses, palanquins, and tom-toms have I seen, and it is better for me to return than see such sadhus." Saying this, he started to return. The fellow travelers pressed him not to do so, but to proceed. They asked him to stop his crooked way of thinking and told him that the sadhu, i.e., Baba, didn't care a bit for the flags and other paraphernalias, not for fame. It was the people, his devotees, that kept up all this paraphernalia out of love and devotion for him. Finally, he was persuaded to continue his journey, go to Shirdi and see Baba. When he went and saw Baba from the courtyard, he was melted inside. His eyes were full of tears, his throat was choked, and all his evil and crooked thoughts vanished. He remembered his Guru saying that is our abode and place of rest, where the mind is most pleased and charmed. He wished to roll himself in the dust of Baba's feet, and when he approached Baba, the latter got wild and cried aloud, "All our humbug, paraphernalias be with us. You go back to your home. Be aware, if you come back to this masjid, why take the darshan of one who flies a flag over his masjid? Is this a sign of sainthood? Remain here not a moment." The Swami was taken aback by surprise. He realized that Baba read his heart and spoke it out. How omniscient he was! He knew that he was least intelligent and that Baba was noble and pure. He saw Baba embracing somebody, touching someone with his hand, comforting others, staring kindly at some, laughing at others, giving Udi prasad to some, and thus pleasing and satisfying all. Why should he alone be dealt with so harshly? Thinking seriously, he came to realize that Baba's conduct responded exactly to his inner thought, and that he should take a lesson from this and improve, and that Baba's wrath was a blessing in disguise. It is needless to say that the latter on, his faith in Baba was confirmed, and he became a staunch devotee of Baba. Nana Sahib Chandorkar. Hemad Pant concludes this chapter with a story of Nana Sahib Chandorkar. When Nana Sahib was once sitting in the masjid with Mahalaspati and others, a Mohammedan gentleman from Bijapur came with his family to see Baba. Seeing Gosha veiled ladies with him, Nana Sahib wanted to go away, but Baba prevented him from doing so. The ladies came and took the darshan of Baba. When one of the ladies removed her veil in saluting Baba's feet and then resumed it again, Nana Sahib, who saw her face, was so much smitten with her rare beauty that he wished to see her face again. Knowing Nana's restlessness of mind, Baba spoke to him after the lady had left the place as follows: Why are you getting agitated in vain? Let the senses do their allotted work or duty. We should not meddle with their work. God has created this beautiful world, and it is our duty to appreciate this beauty. The mind will get steady and calm slowly and gradually. When the front door was open, why go by the back one? When the heart is pure, there is no difficulty whatsoever. Why should one be afraid of anyone if there be no evil thought in us? The eyes may do their work. Why should you feel shy and tottering? Shama was there and he could not follow the meaning of what Baba said. So he asked Nana about this on their way home. Nana told him about his restlessness at the sight of the beautiful lady, how Baba knew it and advised him about it. Nana explained Baba's meaning as follows: Our mind is fickle by nature. It should not be allowed to get wild. The senses may get restless. The body, however, should be held in check and not allowed to be impatient. Senses run after objects, but we should not follow them and crave for their objects. By slow and gradual practice, restlessness can be conquered. We should not be swayed by the senses, but they cannot be completely controlled. We should curb them rightly and properly according to the need of the occasion. Beauty is the subject of sight. We should fearlessly look at the beauty of objects. There is no room for shyness or fear. Only we should never entertain evil thoughts. Making the mind desireless, observe God's work of beauty. In this way, the senses will be easily and naturally controlled, and even in enjoying objects, you will be reminded of God. If the outer senses are not held in check, and if the mind be allowed to run after the objects and be attached to them, our cycles of births and deaths will not come to an end. Objects of sense are things harmful. With viveka, discrimination, as our charioteer, we will control the mind and will not allow the senses to go astray. With such a charioteer, we reach the Vishnu Pada, the final abode, our real home from which there is no return. Bow to Shri Sai, peace to be all.
Chapter 50 Stories of Kakasaheb Dikshit, Shri Tembiya Swami, Balaram Durandar. Chapter 50 of the original Sai Charitra has been incorporated in Chapter 39 as it dealt with the same subject matter. Now, Chapter 51 of the Sat Charitra has been treated here as Chapter 50. This chapter gives the stories of Kakasaheb Dikshit, Shri Tembiya Swami, and Balaram Durandar. Preliminary. Victory be unto Sai, who is the mainstay of the Bhaktas, who is our Sadguru, who expounds the meaning of the Gita and who gives us all powers. O Sai, look favorably on us and bless us all. The sandalwood trees grow on the Malaya mountains and ward off heat. The clouds pour their rainwater and thereby cool and refresh all the people. The flowers blossom in the spring and enable us to worship God therewith. So the stories of Sai Baba come forth in order to give solace and comfort to the readers, both those who tell and those who hear the stories of Baba are blessed and holy, as also the mouths of the former and the ears of the latter. It is well established fact that though we try hundreds of means or sadhanas, we do not attain the spiritual goal of life unless a Sadguru blesses us with his grace. Hear the following story in illustration of this statement. Kaka Sahib Dikshit, from 1864 to 1926. Mr. Hari Sitaram alias Kaka Sahib Dikshit was born in 1864 AD in a Vadnagara Nagar Brahmin family at Khandwa, CP. His primary education was done at Khandwa, Hinganghat, and secondary education at Nagpur. He came to Bombay for higher education and studied first in the Wilson College and then in the Elphinstone College. After graduation in 1883 AD, he passed his LLB and solicitor's examination and then served in the firm of the government solicitors, Messrs. Little and Co. And then, after some time, started a solicitor's firm of his own. Before 1909 AD, Sai Baba's name was not familiar to Kaka Sahib. But after that, he soon becomes his great devotees. While he was staying at Lonavala, he happened to see his old friend, Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar. Both spent some time in talking about many things. Kaka Sahib described to him how, when he was boarding a train in London, he met with an accident in which his foot slipped and was injured. Hundreds of remedies gave him no relief. Nana Sahib then told him that if he wished to get rid of the pain and lameness of his leg, he should go to his Sadguru Sai Baba. He also gave him all the particulars of Sai Baba and mentioned to him Sai Baba's dictum. I draw to me, my man, from far off or even across the seven seas, like a sparrow with a string fastened to its feet. He also made it clear to him that if he be not be Baba's man, he would not be attracted to him, and given a darshan. Kaka Sahib was pleased to hear all this and said to Nana Sahib that he would go to Baba, see him and pray to him to cure not so much his lame leg, but bring around his lame fickle mind and give him eternal bliss. Some time after, Kaka Sahib went to Ahmednagar and stayed with Sardar Kaka Sahib Mirikar in connection with securing votes for a seat in the Bombay Legislative Council. Mr. Bala Sahib Mirikar, son of Kaka Sahib Mirikar, who was a Mamlatdar of Kopargaon, also came at that time to Ahmednagar in connection with a horse exhibition there. After the election business was over, Kaka Sahib Dikshit wanted to go to Shirdi, and both the Mirikars, father and son, were also thinking in their house about a fit and proper person as a guide with whom he should be sent there. There, Sai Baba was arranging things for his reception. Sharma got a telegram from his father-in-law at Ahmednagar stating that his wife was seriously ill and that he should come to see her with his wife. Sharma, with Baba's permission, went there and saw his mother-in-law and found her improving and better. Nana Sahib Panshe and Appa Sahib Gadre happened to see Sharma on their way to the exhibition, Dikshit there, and take him to Shirdi along with him. Kaka said Dikshit and the miracles were also informed of Shama's arrival. In the evening, Shama came to Miracles, who introduced him to Kaka Sahib. They arranged that Shama should leave for Kopargaon with Kaka Sahib by the 10 o'clock night train. After this was settled, a curious thing happened. Bala Sahib Miracle threw aside the veil or coverting on Baba's big portrait and showed the same to Kaka Sahib. He was surprised to see that he, whom he was going to meet at Shirdi, was already there in the form of his portrait to greet him at this juncture. He was much moved and made his prostration before the portrait. This portrait belonged to Megha. The glass over it was broken and it was sent to Miracles for repairs. The necessary repairs had already made, and it was decided to return the portrait with Kaka Sahib and Shama. Before 10 o'clock, they went to the station and booked their passage. But when the train arrived, they found that the second class was overcrowded and there was no room for them. Fortunately, the guard of the train turned out to be an acquaintance of Kaka Sahib, and he put them in the first class. Thus they travelled comfortably and alighted at Kopargaon. Their joy knew no bounds when they saw that Nana Sahib Chandorkar, who was also bound for Shirdi. Kaka Sahib and Nana Sahib embraced each other, and then, after bathing in the sacred Godavari river, they started for Shirdi. After coming there and getting Baba's darshan, Kaka Sahib's mind was melted. His eyes were full of tears, and he was overflowing with joy. Baba said to him that he was also waiting for him and had sent Shama ahead to receive him. Kaka Sahib then passed many happy years in Baba's company. He built a Vada in Shirdi, which he made as his more or less permanent home. The experiences he got from Baba are so manifold that it is not possible to relate them all here. The readers are advised to read a special Kaka Sahib Dikshit note of his Shri Sai Leela magazine, volume 12, number 6 to 9. We close this account with a mention of one fact only. Baba had comforted him by saying that in the end, he'll take him in air coach Viman that will secure him a happy death. This came out true. On the 5th of July, 1926 AD, he was traveling the train with Hemadpant and was talking about Sai Baba. He seemed deeply engrossed in Sai Baba. All of a sudden, he threw his neck on Hemadpant's shoulder and breathed his last with no trace of pain and uneasiness. Shri Tembie Swami. We come to the next story, which shows how saints love each other with fraternal affection. Once Shri Vasudevanand Saraswati, known as Shri Tembie Swami, encamped at Rajamandri, Andhra country, on the banks of Godavari. He was the devout, orthodox, Gnani and Yogi Bhakt of God Dattatreya. One Mr. Pundalik Rao, pleader of Nanded, Nizam state, went to see him with some friends. While they were talking with him, the names of Shirdi and Sai Baba were casually mentioned. Hearing Baba's name, the Swami bowed with his hands and taking a coconut, gave it to Pundalik Rao and said to him, "Offer to this, my brother Sai, with my pranam, and request him not to forget me, but ever love me." He also added that the Swamis do not generally bow to others, but in this case, an exception had to be made. Mr. Pundalik Rao consented to take the fruit and his message to Baba. The Swami was right in calling Baba a brother, for as he maintained an Agnihotra sacred fire day and night in his orthodox fashion, Baba too kept this Agnihotra, that is Dudi, ever burning in the masjid. After 1 month, Pundalik Rao and others left for Shirdi with a coconut and reached Manmad. And as they felt thirsty, they went to the rivulet for drinking water. As water should not be drunk with an empty stomach, they took out some refreshments, that is chewra, flattened rice mixed with spice. The chewra tasted pungent, and in order to soften it, someone suggested and broke the coconut and mixed its scrapings with it. Thus, they made the chewra more tasty and palatable. Unfortunately, the fruit broken turned out to be the same that was entrusted to Pundlik Rao. As they neared Shirdi, Pundlik Rao remembered the trust, that is, the coconut, and was very sorry to learn that it was broken and utilized. Fearing and trembling, he came to Shirdi and saw Baba. Baba had already received a wireless message regarding the coconut from the Tembe Swami, and himself asked Pundlik Rao first to get the things sent by his brother. He held fast Baba's feet, confessed his guilt and negligence, repented and asked for Baba's pardon. Could say,
Rashmi Ben, we've lost you. Rashmi Ben.
Sandhya, you want to carry on? I think her internet's gone.
Oh, okay. Thus they made the chewra more tasty and palatable. Unfortunately, the fruit broken turned out to be the same that was entrusted to Pundlik Rao. As they neared Shirdi, Pundlik Rao remembered the trust, i.e. the coconut, and was very sorry to learn that it was broken and utilized. Fearing and trembling, he came to Shirdi and saw Baba. Baba had already received a wireless message regarding the coconut from the Tembe Swami, and himself asked Pundlik Rao first to give the thing sent by his brother. He held fast Baba's feet, confessed his guilt and negligence, repented, and asked for Baba's pardon. He offered to give another fruit as a substitute, but Baba refused to accept it, saying that the worth of that coconut was by far many times more than an ordinary one, and that it could not be replaced by another. Baba also added, "Now you need not worry yourself any more about the matter. It was on account of my wish that the coconut was entrusted to you and ultimately broken on the way. Why should you take the responsibility of the actions on you? Do you not entertain the sense of doership in doing good as well as for bad deeds? Be entirely prideless and egoless in all things, and thus your spiritual progress will be rapid." What a beautiful spiritual instruction Baba gave. Balaram Durandar, 1878 to 1925. Mr. Balaram Durandar belonged to the Bhattare Prabhu community of Santa Cruz, Mumbai. He was an advocate of the Mumbai High Court and sometime principal of the Government Law School, Mumbai. The whole Durandar family was pious and religious. Mr. Balaram served his community and wrote and published an account of it. He then turned his attention to spiritual and religious matters. He studied carefully Gita and its commentary Dhyaneshwari and other philosophical and metaphysical works. He was a devotee of Vithoba of Bandarpur. He came in contact with Sai Baba in 1912 AD. 6 months earlier, his brothers Babulji and Vaman Rao came to Shirdi and took Baba's darshan. They returned home and mentioned their sweet experiences to Balaram and other members. Then they all decided to see Sai Baba. Before they came to Shirdi, Baba declared openly that, "Today, many of my Darbar people are coming." The Durandar brothers were astonished to hear this remark of Baba from others, as they had not given any previous intimation of this trip. All the other people prostrated themselves before Baba and sat talking with him. Baba said to them, "These are my Darbar people, to whom I referred before," and said to the Durandar brothers, "We are acquainted with each other for the last 60 generations." All the brothers were meek and modest. They stood with joined hands staring at Baba's feet. All the sattvic emotions, such as tears, horripilation, choking, etc., moved them, and they were all happy. Then they went on to their lodging, took their meals, and after taking a little rest again, back to the masjid. Balaram sat near Baba, massaging his legs. Baba, who was smoking the chilam, advanced it towards him and beckoned him to smoke it. Balaram was not accustomed to smoking. Still, he accepted the pipe, smoked it and with great difficulty, and returned it reverentially with a bow. This was the most auspicious moment for Balaram. He was suffering from asthma for 6 years. This smoke completely cured him of the disease, which never troubled him again. Some 6 years later, on a particular day, he again got an attack of asthma. This was precisely the time when Baba took his Mahasamadhi. The day of this visit was a Thursday, and the day of this visit was a Thursday, and the Durandar brothers had the good fortune of witnessing the Chowri procession that night. At the Aarti function in the Chowri, Balaram saw the lustre of Bandurang on Baba's face, and the next morning at the Kakad Aarti time, the same phenomenon, the same lustre of his beloved deity Bandurang was visible again on Baba's face. Mr. Balaram Durandar wrote in Marathi the life of the Maharashtra Saint Tukaram, but he did not survive to see its publication. It was published later on by his brothers in 1928 in a short note on Balaram's life given in the beginning of that book. The above account of Balaram's visit has been fully corroborated therein, vid page 6 of the book. Bow to Shri Sai, peace to all. The epilogue. We have done with chapter 15, and now we come to the last chapter, number 52 in the original. But in this, Hemantpad gave his concluding remarks and promised to give an index, giving the contents of all the chapters in verse as it is given in the Marathi sacred books. But unfortunately, that index was not found in Hemantpad's papers. It was therefore composed and supplied by an able and worthy devotee of Sai Baba, Mr. B.V. Dev, retired Mamlatdar of Thana. As we give in English books an index in the beginning and contents of each chapter at its top, we need not consider the last index chapter here, and so we consider this chapter as the epilogue. Unfortunately, Hemantpad did not survive to revise the manuscript of this chapter and make it ready for the press. When it was sent to the press, Mr. Dev found it to be incomplete and unintelligible in certain places, but it had to be published as it was found. The chief topics dealt therein are briefly given below. The greatness of Sadguru Sai. We prostrate ourselves before and take refuge in that Sai Samarth, who besets all animate and inanimate things in the universe, from a post to God Brahma, pots, houses, mansions, and even skies, who pervades all creatures equally without any differentiation, to whom all devotees are alike, and who knows not honor and dishonor, like or dislike. If we remember him and surrender to him, he fulfills all our desires and makes us attain the goal of life. This ocean of mundane existence is very hard to cross. Waves of infatuation beat high there against the bank of bad thoughts and break down trees of fortitude. The breeze of egoism blows forcibly and makes the ocean rough and agitated. Crocodiles in the form of anger and hatred move there fearlessly. Eddies in the form of the idea, I and mine, and other doubts whirl there incessantly, and innumerable fishes in the form of censure, hate and jealousy play there. Though this ocean is so fierce and terrible, Sadguru Sai is its Agasti, the destroyer, and the devotees of Sai have not the least to fear of it. Our Sadguru is the boat which will safely take us across this ocean. Prayer. Now we fall flat before Sai Baba and holding his feet make the following prayer for the public. Let not our mind wander and desire anything except thee. Let this work, Charitra, be in every house and let it be studied daily. Let it, or may it ward off all the calamities of those who study it regularly. Phala Shruti, reward of study. Now, a few words about the reward you get from a study of this work. After bathing in the sacred Godavari and after taking the darshan of the Mahasamadhi in the Samadhi Mandir in Shirdi, you should read or hear the Satcharitra. If you do this, all your threefold afflictions will vanish. Casually thinking about the stories of Sai, you will get unconsciously interested in spiritual life. And if you then go on through the work with love, all your sins will be destroyed. If you wish to get rid of the cycle of births and deaths, read Sai's stories and remember him always and get yourself attached, devoted to his feet. If you dive into the sea of Sai's stories and then give them out to others, you will get an ever new flavor of them and save the hearers from future misery. If you go on meditating on Sai's form, it will in course of time disappear and lead you into self-realization. It is very hard to know or realize the nature of self or Brahma. But if you approach through the Shagun Brahma, Sai's form, your progress will be easy. If the devotee completely surrenders himself to him, he will lose his individuality and be merged in him and be one with him. As the river becomes in the sea, if you thus become merged with him in any of the three states, viz., waking, dream, and sleep, you will get rid of the bond of samsara. If anybody after bathing reads this with love, faith, and completes it within a week, his calamities will disappear. Or if he hears or reads it daily and regularly, all his dangers will be warded off. By its study, a man wishing for wealth will get its pure traders, success in his line. He will get the reward according to his faith and devotion. Without these, there will be no experience of any kind. If you read this respectfully, Sai will be pleased. And by removing your ignorance and poverty, he will give you knowledge, wealth, and prosperity. With concentrated mind, if you read a chapter daily, it will give you unbounded happiness. One who has his own welfare at heart should study it carefully, and then he will ever remember Sai gratefully and joyfully in birth after birth. This work should be read at home, especially on Guru Purnima, Ashada full moon day, Gokulashtami, Ramnavami, Dashera, which is Baba's Punetithi day. If you study this book carefully, all your desires will be satisfied. And if you always remember Sai's feet in your heart, you will easily cross the Bhava Sansara Sagar. By its study, the diseased and sick will get good health. The poor will get wealth. The mean and afflicted, the prosperity and the mind to get rid of all ideas and get steadiness. Dear God and devoted readers and listeners, we also make our bow to you all and make you a special request. Never forget him, whose stories you have read day by day or month by month. The more fervently you read or listen to these stories, the more encouragement Sai gives us to serve you and be of use to you. Both the author and the readers must cooperate in this work, help each other, and be happy. Prasad Yachana. We close this prayer to the Almighty for the following prasad of favor. May the readers and devotees get complete and wholehearted devotion to Sai's feet. May his form be ever fixed in their eyes, and may they see Sai, the Lord, in all beings. Amen. Bow to Shri Sai. Peace to all. Om Satchidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Sai, Sai Sai, Hare Hare, Hare Baba, Baba Baba, Hare Hare, Hare Data, Data, Hare Hare. Hare Data, Data, Hare Hare. Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram. Ananta Koti Brahmanda Nayaka, Rajadhiraja Parabrahma, Shri Satchidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Sainath Arpanamastu, Shubham Bhavatu, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So now prepare for Aarti. If everybody would like to prepare your Aarti please, and light the lamps, and we will do the Aarti together. Sai Ram. You'll give us a few minutes for everybody to light their Aartis, Darlavin?
Darlavin, you're mute.
Can you hear me? Can you hear
Now
me?
we can hear you. Now we can hear you.
Shall I start the Aarti?
Yes, please.
Aarati Sai Baba, Saukya Datar Jiva, Charanar Jatadi, Dava Dasa Visava, Bhakta Visava, Aarati Sai Baba. Jadunia Ananga, Swasarupi Rahe Danga, Mumuksha Janadavi, Nija Doda Shri Ranga, Arati Sai Baba. Jayamani Jaisa Bhava, Daya Taisa Anubhava, Davisi Daya Dana, ऐसी तुझी ही भाव आरती साई बाबा तुमचे नाम ध्याता हरे संस्कृती व्याथा अगाध तव करणी मार्ग दाविसी अनाथा, आरती साई बाबा.
कलियुगी अवतार सगुण ब्रह्म साचार अवतीर्ण झाला से स्वामी दत्त दिगंबर आरती साई बाबा 8 दिवसा गुरुवारी भक्त करी तिवारी प्रभु पद पहावया भव भय निवारी आरती साई बाबा माझा निज द्रव्य ठेवा तव चरण रज सेवा मागणे हेची आता तुम देवादिदेवा आरती साई बाबा इच्छित दिन चातक निर्मळ तोय निज मुख पाजवे माधवाया सांभाळ आपुली भाक आरती साई बाबा ओ आरती साई बाबा ओ आरती साई बाबा बोलो सच्चिदानंद सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज
Thank you, Tarlaben.
Om
Thank
Sai Ram.
you. Sai Ram. Thank you, Tarlaben.
You're welcome, Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Thank you.